Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I am so thrilled that you're here. Hey, in this episode, I want to get tactical and talk about a summit that I attended last week because it was so great. I want to share with you a couple of different insights that I got from it. And it's not so much about the content of the summit, but how it was put together. And it was such a great example of the power of getting your audience involved and how it translates into them making a commitment. So it's less about like your sales presentation, whether it's a perfect webinar or it's a workshop or whatever it is. What the power of that kind of presentation is, if you can get your ideal avatar to make a commitment towards action, then they are much more likely to want to experience your signature offer. So I want to just break this down a little bit and talk about how this showed up in the summit that I attended last week. I'm going to start from the beginning and kind of work my way through all the way to the offer. But this gentleman did a fantastic job of getting people engaged, getting people to make a commitment to themselves to take a little micro action that then led into a sale. So the very first thing was the way that he positioned his summit. It was a 2-day summit, and you could attend for free, or you could upgrade to a VIP package, which allowed you to have the recordings and then just a couple of other things as you were going through the summit. So just a little bit more personal attention, a one-on-one call with him within a group, not an actual one-on-one, but the ability to talk to him one-on-one within the group. So I can't remember what the price for that upgrade was. Maybe it was $27 or $47, something like that. So not a huge commitment, but enough of a commitment that they took a step to actually make a purchase with him, which increases their commitment level just out of the gate before the summit. So then the summit happened. And one of the things that I think that he did that was brilliant is the whole summit was about writing a book. I suppose at this point in time, I should tell you that the Scalable Expert book is going to be coming out shortly. So there you go. I'm going to just tease that. So if you're interested in seeing how that framework comes to life in book form, well, guess what? It's going to happen. So anyway, I was interested in what his framework was and how he taught people how to kind of start to craft and write their book. One of the things that was brilliant is that he laid out his framework. He talked about how his approach is different than other people. So he really owned his expertise. He has written a large number of best-selling books. So he's got the credentials to back up what he's teaching. But he's been able to claim his expertise by creating a framework around how to write a #1 best-selling book. So that was sort of the first thing he was positioning. Very early on, he asked us all to make a commitment based on what it was that made us show up, right? Like if we're all wanting to write a book, great, make a commitment to yourself that you're going to write a book by a certain date. And so that was how he teed up the entire summit was, this is about you making a commitment to yourself and what's your goal and how do you want to get that done? And then here's how the framework helps you do that. It wasn't at that point a sales pitch to use his framework. It was that in the summit, he was going to teach you how to use his framework, which was, again, a brilliant strategy because you can't go very deep in your framework when you're teaching it in a short period of time, whether it's a sales presentation, a webinar, a summit, a workshop, whatever it is. Your goal is to take your prospective customer or your customer deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So they're really getting more and more detail as you move forward throughout their customer journey. So this is just a taste of like, here's what it is, here's what's possible, here's how I'm an expert, blah, blah, blah. But within that, he anchored our commitment to going through this process. So that was the first sort of huge tip that I will give you is how do you get your audience involved and make a commitment to themselves from the get-go? Very powerful strategy. And then the next big strategy, so this was a summit over 2 days. So what he wanted to do was to give an assignment the first day that he could highlight and talk about on the second day. Again, brilliant. What he did was he got people involved, got them interested, told them that he was going to talk about their assignment and show their assignment to everyone who was on the summit on day 2. So what did that do? Number one, it gave a call to action for people to take a micro step, a baby step towards working on their book. And what it did was it gave them the carrot to show up for that second day, because there was the possibility that he was going to give feedback and also showcase what the thing was, right? So again, brilliant strategy. Not only did he get people to commit to doing a little bit of work, but he got people to show up for day 2. Awesome. So the assignment was to create your book cover. So he spent, I would say, a good half hour really talking about what should be on a book cover. Here's how he wanted you to do it. He wanted you to have a title, a subtitle, a little burst that gave a bonus, your byline, obviously, and then a quote from somebody. It didn't have to be a real quote, but it had to be a quote on the cover of the book. And so that was the assignment. Go to Canva and create a book cover. And interestingly enough, a lot of times this happens, right? So the people who are trainers or the people who can see what's happening are the ones who don't do the work. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do the cover. So I went into Canva and did my cover. And what was interesting is not only did I do the work, but then I actually saw what the cover of my book looks like, right? Because I was like, oh, wow, this is tangible. This is something that, like, this is a cover. And then I submitted it so that I got feedback on that second day. So automatically then I was interested in showing up for the second day. I didn't really care what the content was, and I was like, if he's going to say something about my book cover, then that is worth my showing up, just to get some instant feedback from somebody who doesn't know me, doesn't know my messaging, hasn't listened to the podcast. And I'm like, okay, well, great. That kind of furthers my commitment to getting this out there and gets a little feedback. So I was like, great, I'm going to do it. Not really a big deal. It took about 10 minutes. And so I submitted it. So show up on day 2. And what's fascinating is that he did go through and he talked about every single cover that was submitted. And he probably had a couple hundred people who were on the summit. And I would say maybe a dozen or so submitted a cover. Right? So that tells you one thing, right? The people who are taking action are the people that you want to have in your paid program. So remember that. If you can get them in action, if you can get them to put a little skin in the game in a free session, they are the people that you want, right? You don't want the looky-loos who are just like kind of showing up and not really doing anything, because those are the people who aren't going to do anything when they join your program. So there are about a dozen or so people who, there was 2 different parts of the assignment. I did just the cover part. And so he went through and then he said, well, the top one, the one that is most complete or whatever, gets a free scholarship into the program. And so that was one incentive. The other thing was he gave instant feedback. He's like, here's the book cover. Like, here's what I think about it. Here are my thoughts. Will this turn into a bestseller? Will it not? What needs to be tweaked? So he gave that instant feedback. He also asked the audience to give feedback. So he had a rating system. So he would bring up the book cover and he'd say, out of 0 out of 10, how would you rate this book cover? And so he got instant feedback from the audience. Then the person who did the cover got instant feedback from about 150 people or so, based on like, did you like the cover? Would it prompt you to read it? What's vague? What's not working for you? All of the different things. Which was, if you think about that and just getting that level of feedback from 150 people and from an expert who is a #1 bestseller, that gives you some really good data on your cover, right? Like that took me 10 minutes and I got 150 people's feedback and feedback from somebody who's a book coach with, in a free summit. So it was an amazing approach to get people to show up. It was an amazing approach to have somebody have skin in the game so that they took the next step. So it was great. I got a huge, he gave feedback on my subtitle and gave some examples. Now, what's interesting is I had not upgraded to the VIP. So I did not get the recording, but he's like, here's how I would write your subtitle, blah, blah, blah. And I missed it because I was listening and I missed what he said. And I was like, oh, I'll go back and listen to the recording. Well, interestingly enough, I hadn't upgraded, so I hadn't gotten that recording. But from a psychology perspective, I And again, like the people who submitted their covers felt the same way that I did. They were like, oh, I want to go back and listen to that again. So that's a great kind of upsell at that point, is to do that. Then he did something very interesting. So like I said, he picked out kind of the top ones of, who he really was interested in working with. But he said, I want to work with you on this book because I really like the title and the cover and the topic and all of the things. And so by saying that, everyone he said that to joined his program because he called them out specifically. So he took 150 or more people and whittled it down and then invited these people that he wanted to work with so that they would take the next step. Brilliant. It wasn't like, I want you, everyone needs to buy this. No, he was like, Roxy, I want to work with you because your title and your book cover is going to become a number one bestseller. I want to be a part of that. Come and join my program. That specific call to action personalized it so much for that person that she automatically signed up, right? That's different than being like, I want you to buy my thing. And, because you're here, you should want to buy my thing because you're interested in doing it. Totally different, right? He went down to that level of personalization that is very rare in a large scale summit or sales presentation. So the key there is, how do you personalize it? How do you get people to make a micro commitment and then make them part of it? So they want to show up, they want to be paying attention, they want the recordings, they want to be involved, and they want to buy the next step of the journey because now they can imagine what it's like to get that thing done. And so look at what your signature offer is and think about your sales presentation or however you go about getting people to join your world, and think about how you can get them involved. Whether it's voting on someone else's kind of micro commitment that they made, giving that feedback right away, or just personally inviting them to come in, and not personally like, hey guys, I think you should join my thing. No, it was very targeted and very specific, like, because you did this, I want to work with you and blah, 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 right? Very specific. And that person's like, of course I'm going to show up for this. Like, this is great to get this kind of feedback on something that is something that I made a commitment to right away at day one. So it was a brilliant strategy. Now, I will say he went very close to the perfect webinar script. And so if you haven't heard about the perfect webinar script, you can Google it. Russell Brunson has a lot of detail on that. So he went very close to that script, but the level of interactivity and the level of personalization that he had in there is what caused him to get the sale. So there are a half dozen other little nuggets that he did a fantastic job on. But hopefully this gave you some tactical examples that you can add to your next sales presentation. So it turns from you just blasting them with content and how great your offer is to including them in the journey, so that when it's time for them to make a buying decision, they see themselves in that experience. They see how you are directly helping them, not just a passive activity or passive thing that they're purchasing, hoping that this may be something that will help them. So very, very, very strong strategy in terms of how to make that a natural progression. The other thing I'll say is, when you're thinking about personalizing it, it's harder to do than you think, right? Because you're in a virtual environment, you don't actually see the people as you're teaching. So you really have to put yourself in a position of the person who's watching, and how do you get them to participate in this sort of more passive environment? One of the things I love to do is just imagine my ideal customer in front of me, right? Like, they're literally sitting in front of me and I am speaking directly to them. That may help you sort of get out of the computer or the passiveness of just directing your thoughts and your presentation at a computer screen or at a video camera or however you're recording, and really making it about that person. Even if you have 1,000 people in your session, you can customize it down to really having it be a personalized experience for that individual. So that's really the point that I wanted to share about this summit, because he did such a phenomenal job of taking, for me, for example, like taking me from feeling like I'm just in a sea of people and he has no idea who I am. He doesn't see me on camera. He hasn't talked to me. He doesn't know anything about me, to literally he is giving me specific personalized feedback about my book cover. That is a huge difference in how a presentation is successful or not successful. So there you go. There is my tip for you today. Hopefully you can take a couple of nuggets from this and apply it to your sales presentation. So the sale, to have somebody join your signature offer, whatever that is, feels really good and natural to you and for your customers. Hey, if you love this episode today, I would love it if you would give us a rating, if you would pass this episode and other episodes on to other people who would benefit from this. The more eyeballs we have on the podcast, obviously, the more we can record and the more it gets out into the world, because I am on a mission to help consultants and coaches and business owners claim and own their expertise and then take it and become scalable so they can grow beyond their time and attention. All right, there you go. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will talk to you soon.